The bitter wind cut through the empty streets that Christmas Eve, carrying with it the faint scent of pine from distant holiday markets and the quiet despair of those struggling in the shadows. Tahir, a poor single dad, trudged home from his night shift at the small bakery, where he worked tirelessly to make ends meet for himself and his 7-year-old daughter, Ayan. His shoes were worn thin, his coat threadbare, and his stomach ached from hunger had long since grown accustomed to ignoring. The streetlights flickered above, casting long, lonely shadows that seemed to stretch endlessly across the snow-dusted pavement. As he passed the corner of Maple and Fifth, something unusual caught his eye, a small bundle lying motionless near the curb. His heart froze for a moment. At first he thought it might be a stray dog or perhaps discarded trash, but as he drew closer, the shape of tiny limbs became unmistakable. A baby, no more than a few months old, was lying there, swaddled in a thin, tattered blanket, shivering violently in the cold. Tahir's breath hitched, fogging the icy air as he knelt down, his gloved hands trembling. Whoever had left this child must have been desperate or cruel, or both. He could see the faint blue of the infant's lips and the way the small body shook uncontrollably. Fear, worry, and something deeper, something fierce and protective shot through him. He scooped the baby into his arms, pulling the bundle close against his chest, trying to share the warmth of his own meager body with this tiny life. For a moment, the world outside, the cold, the hardship, the loneliness, vanished, leaving only him and the fragile being in his arms. If you believe in kindness, in miracles, or in second chances, take a moment to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to our channel. Tahir's mind raced. He had barely enough to feed himself and his daughter. How could he possibly care for another life? Yet as he cradled the baby, looking down at its innocent, trusting eyes, he felt an undeniable pull. He had lost his wife 2 years ago, and since then, every Christmas had felt emptier than the last. Ayan tried to fill the void with her laughter, but Tahir knew she missed the warmth of her mother's presence too. Now, holding this abandoned child, he felt a spark of purpose ignite within him. Maybe this was a sign, a chance to rewrite the meaning of family, even if it seemed impossible. He wrapped the baby tightly in his coat, pressing her to his chest, and hurried through the snow toward the tiny apartment he shared with Ayan. Each step was a battle. The streets were slick with ice, and his arms ached under the weight of the infant. Yet something inside him whispered that giving up was not an option. As he pushed open the creaking door of their apartment building, the faint smell of their humble living space greeted him: old carpet, burned toast from breakfast hours ago, and the comforting scent of his daughter's blanket. He could hear Ayan's excited footsteps as she ran toward him, her face lighting up with curiosity when she saw the small bundle in his arms. Tahir set the baby down on the couch, keeping a protective hand hovering over her. Ayan leaned in, her eyes wide with wonder. Despite the fear and uncertainty, the child seemed calm under her gentle gaze. Tahir retrieved a warm bottle of milk from the kitchen, warmed it carefully over the stove, and held it to the baby's lips. She drank hungrily, and for the first time, he felt a flicker of relief. There was a fragile bond forming here, fragile yet profound, and it struck Tahir that in that moment, he wasn't just saving a child. He was being saved too. The loneliness and despair that had haunted him since his wife's death softened, replaced by a cautious hope that perhaps they could all find a new beginning together. Over the next few hours, Tahir made countless calls to emergency services, to local shelters, to anyone who might know what to do. Each conversation left him more aware of the harsh reality: this baby might not have a family searching for her. It was a terrifying thought, yet Tahir refused to let panic consume him. He improvised, setting up a small cot in the corner of their living room, wrapped in every blanket he could find. He fed her, changed her, and hummed quietly so the little one would sleep. Ayan stayed close, whispering softly, brushing strands of hair from the baby's forehead, her own heart swelling with love for the child she had already decided was her sister, even if only for a night. Tahir's heart ached with the weight of uncertainty. The more he cared for this abandoned life, the more he feared what might come next. What if someone came looking for her, and it was a mistake? What if the authorities took her away, and he never saw her again? Yet he knew he could not abandon her now. There was a moral clarity in this decision, a raw understanding that some acts of compassion demanded courage beyond measure. He stayed awake through the night, rocking the infant in his arms, whispering gentle promises, while outside, the city celebrated Christmas in lights, music, and warmth he had not felt in years. The next morning, Tahir faced the daunting reality of Christmas Day. He had no money for presents, no fancy meals, just two small humans depending on him completely. Yet as he watched the baby stretch and yawn in Ayan's arms, a new kind of joy surged through him. He decided that today he would focus not on what he lacked, but on what he could give: safety, warmth, love. He prepared a modest breakfast, setting aside a few slices of bread and a cup of cocoa, and even managed to fashion a tiny hat for the baby from an old scarf. They sat together on the living room floor, sharing what little they had, and Tahir realized that sometimes miracles were not delivered wrapped in glittering paper, but in the quiet, unassuming acts of compassion that transformed lives. As word of the abandoned baby spread through the neighborhood, curious neighbors began stopping by. Some were skeptical, others shocked, but Tahir remained steadfast. He knew that the right course was to care for this child while ensuring she was safe and healthy. With each passing hour, he noticed subtle changes in himself. The fatigue and despair that had clung to him like a shadow began to lift, replaced by a renewed sense of purpose. He sang softly while feeding the baby, and in her tiny, trusting eyes, he glimpsed the possibility of redemption, not just for her, but for himself and Ayan too. Days passed, and the authorities arrived to ensure the baby's well-being. Tahir spoke honestly about what had happened, describing how he found her on Christmas Eve, how he had kept her safe through the night, and how Ayan had formed an immediate, unbreakable bond with her. The social workers were moved, and though the official process of finding her biological family would take time, they recognized Tahir's unwavering commitment. They allowed the child to remain with him temporarily, impressed by his integrity and love. It was not an easy path, and the challenges were only beginning, but Tahir understood that love often demanded patience, resilience, and courage in equal measure. Over the following weeks, Tahir's small apartment was transformed. The baby's laughter became a new soundtrack to their lives. Simple meals gained new meaning when shared with 3 small hearts instead of 2. Ayan took on the role of a little protector and teacher, delighting in every smile, every tiny milestone. Tahir worked harder than ever, fueled not only by necessity, but by the unshakable desire to provide a home filled with warmth and hope. Slowly, neighbors who had once only glanced in curiosity began to offer assistance: extra blankets, clothing, even homemade toys. The act of kindness that had begun on a cold street corner began to ripple outward, touching lives beyond Tahir's imagination. Through it, Tahir reflected on the profound lessons of that Christmas. He realized that family was not defined solely by blood or circumstance, but by love, sacrifice, and unwavering commitment. He thought of his wife, whose memory lingered in every corner of their lives, and he felt her presence in the way the baby fit so naturally into their little family. Every tear he shed, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt was worth it for the chance to give this child what he had once feared he could not: safety, love, and belonging. And as Christmas lights twinkled outside their window, Tahir knew that life, in its unpredictability and fragility, had given him a gift greater than anything he could have imagined: In saving a life that night, he had found a new sense of purpose, a deeper capacity for love, and the understanding that even in the harshest winters, miracles could bloom. He looked down at the baby sleeping peacefully in his arms. Ayan curled up beside them, and he whispered a promise, no matter what, he would always protect them both, with every ounce of strength he possessed. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps spread stories of hope, kindness, and second chances. And before you leave, please leave a comment telling us what you would do if you found someone in need. Like to hear, you might inspire someone else to act with courage and compassion. That Christmas Eve, Tahir learned that love is limitless. It is not bound by circumstance or hardship, but grows when hearts open, when hands reach out, and when the most desperate moments are met with courage. A poor single dad had seen an abandoned life on a frigid road, and in choosing to act, he had changed not just that life, but his own. And in the quiet warmth of that small apartment, amidst the laughter and coos of a baby who had found a home, Tahir realized that sometimes the greatest gifts are not found under a tree, but in the heart's willingness to embrace the unexpected, to believe in second chances, and to choose love, even when the world seems unbearably cold. Word count, approximately 1,820 words. This story maintains cinematic imagery, emotional depth, suspense, and a smooth narrative flow for a full-length YouTube video. It includes 2 viewer engagement points and a special comment request near the end. If you want, I can also generate a compelling SEO title, description, 8 keywords, and 8 hashtags for YouTube that perfectly match this story to maximize engagement.